Imagine being murdered because your boyfriend's mother wants to keep your baby. Huge trigger warning before we proceed with this video. It is very gruesome and violent and difficult to hear. This was 24-year-old Vera Jo Regal. Although Vera was 24, she had the mentality of an 8 to 12-year-old girl. She had a very troubled childhood, and she endured a bunch of SA from not only her father, but her mother's boyfriend as well. This obviously created issues with her and her mother, and she never felt safe at home. When Vera was 19 years old, she met a 13-year-old boy named Zachary Brooks. Zachary's mother, Sherry Lynn Brooks, offered Vera to come live with them in their home. Vera was thrilled and ecstatic to be able to move in with her boyfriend and his family and couldn't wait. But Sherry's reasonings were a lot more sinister than she made it seem like. Sherry was a mother of 9 children, but 5 of those children were removed from her care because of her neglect and SA towards her children. Sherry's family was known a lot in that area for being involved in many crimes. She was even compared to Charles Manson. Sherry, of course, being the ringleader, aka Sugar Babe. Sherry was wheelchair bound. She couldn't have children, and her children were being removed left and right. So, with the children she still had, she would utilize their girlfriends to convince them to get pregnant so she could have those babies. And that is exactly what she did with Vera. Vera got pregnant by Zachary, and from the second she announced she was pregnant, Zachary gave the rights to that baby to Sherry. Vera was mistreated like crazy in this home. She was used to do all the chores, rub Sherry's feet, was made to sleep in a closet with pet pigs. The whole home was just disgusting. And Vera was constantly beaten by family members, with, of course, Sherry in the background egging it on. Sherry even cashed all of Vera's disabilities checks to keep the money for herself. While pregnant, Vera was even forced to drink 3 full bottles of castor oil by Sherry because she needed the baby to be born on her birthday. The baby was born 1 month earlier than it should have been and was born with health issues because of that. From the second the baby was born, it was very clear to Vera that Zachary wanted nothing to do with her. And Vera really wanted to be around her baby, but Sherry made this impossible, punishing her even if she got close or even tried to talk to the baby. Finally, Sherry decided that it was best to get rid of Vera altogether in order to make sure she could keep her baby. And this is where Nicole and Danny come in. Related to Sherry, there's a lot more details to this case and I'm running out of time, so I'm going to post a part 2. Part 2 of the Sugar Babe murders. Huge trigger warning before we proceed. After nightfall on March 26, 2011, Nicole, Danny, and Zachary took 24-year-old Vera to the railroads near the family's home, and they stabbed Vera 21 times. Her throat was slashed from ear to ear, and every bone in her face was broken. She was then left nude on top of the train tracks in order for them to wait for the 2 a.m. train to come and get rid of the evidence, as instructed to them according to them by Sherry, aka Sugar Babe. What these people didn't account for was the fact that Vera was incredibly strong. She used every last bit of her strength to move herself from the danger zone of the rails. Unfortunately though, she did end up passing away. But what didn't happen was the fact that the train didn't go over her. Therefore, none of the evidence was destroyed. As soon as authorities found out who the victim was, they immediately went to the Brooks home. Everyone was questioned, but Sherry was allowed to be present for all of it. It was very clear that everyone was terrified of Sherry. At first, Sherry claimed that it was someone else, another one of Vera's boyfriends who must have done it. But the only boyfriend Vera had was her son, Zachary. Not to mention that there was a lot of evidence authorities found inside of the home that linked them to the murder. Eventually, Nicole and Danny went ahead and admitted to the crimes. They took plea deals, and Danny was sentenced to 40 years in prison, and Nicole received 23 years for conspiracy charge. Zachary at the top, who was Vera's boyfriend and the father of their child, was sentenced to 4 years for obstruction of justice. As for Sherry, she was also charged for obstruction and was charged to only 40 months in prison. And to my understanding from the articles I've read, she is now free. Vera did not deserve this kind of life. I'm very sorry for what you went through. I hope you're resting in peace. If y'all are at all confused as to any parts of this case, go ahead and check out part 1. It's the very last video I posted before this one. This case is truly devastating. Nobody deserves this. As for the baby was removed from Brooke's home and set out for adoption. Apparently, according to records, Sherry threw a huge fit about this as well. As always, guys, please remember to stay respectful in my comment section. These are real cases, real people, real crimes.
What really happened to Brittany Murphy? Let's get into it. Just a warning, it's gonna get a little creepy, so don't watch it at 3 a.m. This was literally one of my therapy movies growing up. If I was having a bad day, I would watch this on repeat. On December 20th, 2009, her mom found her collapsed on the bathroom floor. A few hours later, she was pronounced dead, but the cause of it is where it becomes interesting. The cause of death was anemia and pneumonia. This is her husband, Simon Monjack. 5 months after Brittany's passing, he passes away the same exact way in the same home. Her dad didn't believe the cause of death at all, so he goes and orders a full toxicology report. Then finds out there was toxic metals found in her body that compared to rat poisoning. Okay, this is when it gets creepy, so warning. Britney Spears was the previous owner of the house that Brittany Murphy and her husband died in. According to this podcast and her previous makeup artist, Britney Spears sold that house because of paranormal activity that was going on in there. And after a ghost tried pushing her down the steps. But it doesn't end there. There's so much more to this, so let me know if you want to. Did you know that Brittany Murphy was also terrified of her home? According to her husband, Simon Monjack, when they would be out, she would beg him not to go back to the house and to take her to the Beverly Hills Hotel instead. But this is when things get weird. People who knew Brittany personally didn't like Simon for her. So they thought he was completely controlling her and that he was a con artist and liar. This is a photo of her mom Sharon and her husband Simon that they took after she passed away. Here's another photo that they took, and a lot of people think that he looked like a grieving dad more than a grieving husband. Apparently Sharon and Simon would sleep in the same bed with each other after Brittany passed away, but I don't know how true that is. I do personally think she was manipulated by him, which makes her story even more sad. She left him out of her will and her estate went to her mom. But you guys, that didn't even stop Simon from taking her funds. He took out 80% of her income out of her bank account. If you think that's suspicious, listen to this. Over the years, Simon made it look like he was buying Brittany expensive jewelry, but after her passing, when Sharon went to go sell her jewelry, it was all cheap and fake. Okay, so Simon Monjack, Brittany Murphy's husband, passed away from the same thing. The cause of death was pneumonia and anemia mixed with other things, over-the-counter things. I don't think I could say it on here. But those over-the-counter things were supposed to help them treat whatever sickness they were going through after their Puerto Rico trip. This was the house that they both passed away in. It was right off of Sunset in Los Angeles. This is the house now. It's been completely renovated from the ground up. It's a more modern style house compared to what it was before. Right after Simon passed away, Sharon sold the house. So we already know that Britney Spears was terrified of this home before she sold it to Brittany Murphy. Simon thought there was severe mold in the house, but there's nothing that says there actually was, and it was completely renovated from ground up, so I don't know. And apparently Simon's mom Linda told both of them to go to the doctors to get checked because she knew something wasn't right with them. They never went. According to her friends and a personal trainer, Simon was super controlling. He was the lawyer, he handled all the finances, he made all the decisions for her. Death could have been prevented if he let her go. I'm watching the Brittany Murphy HBO documentary right now, and I'm on the second part. All of the media articles that I was reading on this case said that mold could have been a playing factor, but they weren't for sure. This documentary literally has pictures of the mold. Watch this.
To do with the mold.
Simon's mom.
To me, it was obvious when I went to the house. In this gorgeous picture window, I'm looking around the frame of that window and you visibly see mold on the side, across the top, across the bottom. When I look over to the French doors and there's mold there. I don't think there's any other explanation for their death.
All of the symptoms, disorientation, feeling sick, dreadful headaches, all these things come from inhaling spores from mold.
Now that makes a lot more sense on why both of their cause of death was so similar to one another, but I still want to know one more thing. Okay, so going back to the toxicology report that her dad did, who put rat poisoning in her body? And if Sharon was living in that same house with them, how come she never got sick from the mold? Or Maybe she did, but it wasn't that bad for her. And that also makes sense why they renovated the whole property from the ground up. But I'm not sure if that is the same one on Selling Sunset because I haven't seen that show, but I'm going to start. In the meantime, though, I'm going to go ahead and fold my laundry and finish watching this documentary and see if anything else crazy comes up. Also, I released a new video on the YT, and it's about really creepy Hollywood conspiracy theories that I may or may not believe in. Okay, fine, I don't believe in most of them. But if you do want to watch it, you can find it in my bio.